At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
The Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Cloak of Invisibility. Together they make the Deathly Hallows. Together they make one Master of Death. The last will and testament of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We're covering chapter 23, Malfoy Manor. And because we're covering a chapter related to the Malfoys, we have Jenn.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Got my green water bottle and I'm ready to go.
We do have a shout out to get to before we get into this massive chapter, and it is a massive chapter. The comment is from Sandhya, who left the comment on chapter 20 of Deathly Hallows, Xenophilius Lovegood. She says she must have missed the episode on portrait magic, but teaching portraits your traits is so contemporary. Just like what is happening with AI today. You are basically creating your digital twin or artistic twin by feeding your personal data.
I loved that.
I think it's a really cool thought to apply it to today's technology.
Yes.
Which obviously AI, has been talked about for decades, but I don't think it was a real big thing when this book was written, necessarily. So kind of ahead of the game.
Yeah.
For the background info on that, if anybody did miss that episode, portraits like Sir Cadogan and the Fat Lady just have normal enchantments that enable them to move and have some of the individual's favorite phrases or personality traits. For example, Sir Cadogan challenging people to duels, or the Fat Lady indulging in good food and drink. The Hogwarts headmasters and headmistresses have them done prior to death, and thus those people are able to interact with the portrait, teaching behaviors and wisdom so they can pass on their likeness in a more deep and meaningful way through the generations. So that's kind of the difference between those portraits. I just think it's a really fascinating area of magic.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing to differentiate there.
We love the comment. We love bringing it to the real world and the present in such a unique way. So thank you, Sandhya, for the comment. If you want to leave a comment, you can do so by leaving a comment on our Spotify, where a lot of our listeners are listening to this very podcast. And you can also leave comments on our socials like Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, all at Hogwarts a Pod. There's also a YouTube, which is also at Hogwarts a Pod. So plenty of places to reach out and interact with us. We love getting those comments, and we love getting your thoughts on Harry Potter. So we do have this big chapter to get to. Just a couple of things happen. And it starts off right where we left off from the last chapter, with Harry saying the name Voldemort specifically, despite your wonderful rhyme scheme that we had at the end of the last episode.
It would have been better if he called him Voldy.
That was a great way to end the last chapter, the last recording, but however, he said the full name. Therefore, they're immediately surrounded by multiple assailants, and Hermione, instead of pointing her wand at the assailants, points her wand at Harry, disfiguring his facial features in a quite substantial way. Snatchers end up grabbing them, and we do find out that it's Fenway Greyback, a man named Scabier,
I think Scabier,
and three others who remain nameless in this chapter.
Another instance of quick thinking by Hermione.
The quick disfigurement spell?
Yeah, and I know we talked about this on the last episode, but she has just been on fire.
She has been. Definitely harms the Snatcher's ability to identify him so quickly. The trio tries to use fake names. They attempt to. Harry uses the name Vernon Dudley. Obviously, you know where his mind's at, trying to come up with names. Ron uses the name he used before to get away from Snatchers, which is Stan Shunpike. And Hermione uses Penelope Clearwater, where we heard Penelope Clearwater before. She is a student at Hogwarts. I think she was Percy's girlfriend.
Yeah,
for a
she's
while.
a Ravenclaw.
Yeah. So that's where she comes up with. So Hermione uses a plausible other in-world character name. Ron uses a fairly well-known name because a lot of people have used the Night Bus before, presumably.
That was a bad fake name on his part.
He went to the well one too many times on that one.
Yep.
And the reason why... You got to read the room. So you're with Fenrir Greyback and this Scabier individual who maybe have a higher level of interaction than maybe just your average Snatcher. They might know Stan Shunpike, because remember, Stan Shunpike participated in the Seven Potters scene under Death Eater robes. So
yeah,
they're familiar with Stan Shunpike. So they also note that Dean Thomas and Griphook are also captured. Harry makes up a wild story about being a Slytherin and his father working at the Ministry of Magic. And it almost works.
So close.
They're like, I think there was a Dudley that worked in the Ministry of Magic. I think, maybe that's a thing. And I do like how they also note that everybody thinks we want to hear Slytherin.
I laughed at that.
And if I were one of these Snatchers, I would say the same exact thing. Everybody thinks they know what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Which is such a fair point. And it brings me to my next question. Shouldn't they have worked on possible fake names and identities and backstories?
It's a little bit surprising that they haven't, especially with a lot of Hermione's quick thinking, and to get them out of these scenarios, she's clearly given a lot of thought to how to approach these scenarios. So it's a little bit surprising that this isn't something that they've practiced or really talked about developing something out, developing a deeper backstory, debating about whether or not they should be Slytherin or... I mean, honestly, it's probably safe to say Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff. You just probably don't want to say you're Gryffindor.
Even if you are Gryffindor, like, it can still be... Maybe these three don't want to say Gryffindor because...
Too close
to home?
Yeah.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
If you're just some general person, I don't think there's an inherent danger in saying Gryffindor, maybe. And I could be wrong about that, I suppose, but...
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, I wouldn't... I think you would be... They don't care which house you're in.
No.
I mean, Slytherin is the obvious answer because few mudblood, non-magical parentage people end up in Slytherin, so I get that that's the safest answer. But why wouldn't you say Ravenclaw?
If you want to make it plausible, you don't necessarily want to go for the safest. You want to go for something that can fly under the radar, which is why I think Hufflepuff or Ravenclaw would have done better.
I will say that Harry comes very close to proving that he's a Slytherin by knowing where the common room is and specific details of the common room.
He could back that up, which was really, really good.
That's a unique trait that probably not many of the people they catch can duplicate.
That is something where it does lend... If you can back it up, it's safe to say Slytherin.
Yeah.
But, it wouldn't have made sense for Ron or Hermione to say Slytherin.
I guess, how hard is it then to fake being from a different house? If you're a Ravenclaw, do you really know where the Hufflepuff common room is? I guess the point is that you don't.
Yeah,
right?
You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Which is kind of confusing to me because I would imagine that there are inter-house friendships.
Right.
So where do these people hang out? Are you not allowed to bring, Ravenclaws back to the Hufflepuff common room?
I get, into the common room, but if your friend's just walking, back at the end of the day after, being in the library or whatever, you wouldn't, walk your friend to their common room door?
Right. Is it that secret? I didn't think it was... I mean, I know that the inside, maybe, I guess you could make the argument, could be more secretive.
Right.
But the location shouldn't be.
You wouldn't think so, but I'm starting to get the impression that it actually is.
To be completely fair, though, like in Hogwarts Legacy, I have still not been able to figure out how to navigate that castle.
Really?
Yeah, I am.
How many playthroughs?
I've done 2.5 playthroughs,
Wow.
and I am still hopelessly lost when I'm wandering around the castle.
So I will say this, speaking of finding common rooms, obviously I played as a Ravenclaw, so I knew where that one was. I randomly stumbled upon the Hufflepuff one, because it's really not all that hard to find.
The Hufflepuff one I stumbled upon, and it wasn't too bad.
Slytherin is tricky.
I started with Slytherin, so that one was
Fair.
my easy one. I could not find Gryffindor.
Gryffindor was hard.
Gryffindor's hard.
I stumbled on that one completely randomly.
Yeah, and I haven't been able to figure out how to get back.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe there is some validity into
Yeah.
these common rooms are even placed in certain ways that are maybe a little confusing if you're not purposefully,
Seeking them out.
yeah. And even then they might be a little hidden, so. But anyway, Harry begins to get glimpses into Voldy's mind, and they become clearer and sharper. And he's in this obviously very dangerous situation where he needs to stay present. He needs to stay conscious, and he needs to stay in the moment. And Voldy is trying, not even trying to, he's just so intense right now that it's hard for Harry to stay present. And these scenes with Voldy actually are interspersed throughout the whole chapter, and they go back to the present and what Voldy's experiencing. But for the sake of us staying on point,
Yeah.
we'll go through all of the Voldy stuff right now. So Harry's seeing scenes dance in front of him, mixing with his current situation. He's traveling to a towering building. Voldy is traveling to a towering building, and he gets to the highest point where there is a very tiny slit-like window. You see inside, and there's a skeletal man occupying the cell. Somehow, Voldy is able to get his way into the cell. I mean, if he's able to fly like smoke, I imagine getting in through any opening would probably be fairly easy. The skeletal man says, "So, you have come. I thought you would, one day, but your journey was pointless. I never had it." And Voldy immediately says, "Liar." So the man responds with, "Kill me. I welcome death. But my death will not bring you what you seek. There is so much you do not understand." And if there was one way to really make Voldy angry, it's to say that there is so much more he has to understand.
Yep. I can't imagine that he could have said anything worse in that.
Tom Riddle views himself as, if not anything but shrewd and smart and cunning. I mean, literally, like every possible Slytherin characteristic that alludes to intelligence or a kind of wisdom of some sort. He feels like he embodies all of that. So to say that he doesn't fully understand something, I'm like, I'm sorry, who are you? Like, I'm here, and you're wasting away in a cell. Like, I think I'm the one that is in power here.
He can't be taking that terribly kindly. This
No.
guy who's chained up thinks he has the upper hand.
That's what he's presenting, too, is this guy wasting away in a cell is taking ownership of this conversation. And being like, I know why you're here already. I don't have it. Never did. You're wasting your time. That is such a baller move, isn't
Yeah,
it?
no, it really is.
Like, it's this, he knows exactly who he's dealing with, does not care.
Nope.
And I get you're also wasting away in a cell. You probably have for years and years and years and years.
Yep.
So what do you have to lose at this point? You're like, fine, kill me.
He's probably excited. He got a visitor.
He's got a visitor that will probably end his long suffering in this cell. Great, just do
This
it.
is awesome.
You
He's
got
been waiting
nothing.
for this.
Exactly. You got nothing on me. What are you going to do to
He's
me?
probably just in a really good mood.
Yeah, probably. He's like, oh, I get to play with something.
Yeah.
Great. obviously, if he's at the cell at the highest, most point in the tallest tower, it must be pretty formidable to have earned such a cell.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to have a little back and forth. Coming back to the present, the Snatchers have found the Sword of God, or Gryffindor, in the tent, and they also recognize Hermione from the Daily Prophet. And they start to think, hey, wait, if that's truly Hermione Granger, then this must be Harry Potter.
It's a reasonable conclusion to be drawing.
Yeah, they're like, well, and now they start like poking at him. They're like, wait, doesn't he have glasses? Oh, I found glasses in the tent.
They put on.
Yeah, they try to like smash him into
Yep.
his face. They try to figure out if there's a mark on his forehead, because it kind of looks like there might be, but it's hard to tell because of the disfigurement. I don't know. They decide that better be safe than sorry. So instead of taking this group to the Ministry, let's take them somewhere more secure. So they change plans and try to take the group to Voldy himself. However, Greyback doesn't have a dark mark
Aw.
to call Voldy immediately, which Greyback kind of notes is a little disappointing.
He's not part of the club.
And exactly. So that's important wording. Only the inner circle are branded with the mark. So we've had these talks about the scope of being a Death Eater and what that is. So like the Seven Potters scene, you had like 30 people involved in that scene.
Yeah.
Were all of them Death Eaters? I would say no. I would say maybe even very few of them were. If it's only his inner circle, then I'm thinking back to literally like the graveyard scene in Goblet of Fire. And there was, like 12? A handful?
I imagine that those were the actual inner circle of the Death
ones
Eaters.
that weren't in Azkaban.
Yeah.
Or like Snape, who could not be there because he was right by Dumbledore's side.
Right.
So literally, that's it. I would assume that that's it.
So, well, we know that Draco became a Death Eater.
Yes.
So he is the newer blood.
It's probably the last. I would assume he's like the last one that they've made an official member.
I would think so. Now, my understanding of it, and I could be wrong with this, but wasn't he made Death Eater more or less to punish Lucius? I know his task to kill Dumbledore was given to punish Lucius. Was he also inducted as a Death Eater in the same vein, or do you think that he was going to be a Death Eater regardless of Lucius's standing?
I would think he would be made a Death Eater regardless. Maybe Voldy thought that in order to carry out such a monumental task,
you need to be. I could see that. I'm doing a quick glancing of all of the known Death Eaters, and it definitely seems like Draco is the youngest by far. And almost all of the named Death Eaters were the ones who were in that circle in Goblet of Fire.
Yeah. I feel like it's a very tight-knit group. I just get the feeling like it's more of a passed-down thing.
Mm-hmm. No, I could totally see that. It's interesting to me that, so Draco, because I didn't know this before looking this up, that Draco is the only new one.
I could buy that.
Yeah.
I've always imagined the Inner Circle being a very strict group to get into. Like, I wouldn't think Voldy would want that group to be like
no
open membership.
No.
Like it should be a special thing to have the dark mark.
On Wednesdays they wear black.
I feel like on every day that ends in Y, wear black. It's a very emo group. After Greyback gets over the embarrassment of not having the dark mark, they decide to go to the Malfoys instead. And we get to Malfoy Manor. And as we enter Malfoy Manor, there are gates that contort into a face and asks for a purpose of their visit. And after they tell this magical gate that they've brought Harry Potter, Narcissa greets them. coldly at the door.
Does she ever do anything not coldly?
It would be interesting to see, like, I honestly would like to see a version of Harry Potter from the perspective of Draco Malfoy.
Yes.
Because I can't imagine Lucius and Narcissa have a super loving relationship. I'm sure they do, because they are married and they do have a kid.
That doesn't...
But it doesn't seem like such a warm environment.
The concern that I would have is, do we know that they're together because they love each other, or do we know that they're together because they're from two pure blood wizarding families who happen to have children that were roughly the same age, that they then decided to continue the pure blood line by matchmaking them?
That's fair about the matchmaking part and why they might be together.
Yeah.
That's fair. I would like to see the relationship go from the first Wizarding War and see what that was like to the in-between time where Voldy's gone and they can just, like, live a life not under his immediate rule.
That would be interesting.
And then into this.
Yeah.
I feel like Narcissa is not particularly happy with their current lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that one.
So at the very least, I think we can agree that Lucius and Narcissa's relationship must be tense at best.
I feel like it's been tense for a while.
We should do, like, you know what we should do for an extra episode after we're done with the books?
What?
We should do, like, a couples therapy. And pick out couples in the wizarding world and just do, like, a couples therapy session. Wouldn't that be a fun episode?
That would be really fun. I would definitely be down for that.
Oh, that'd be really awesome.
That would be neat.
Yeah, I can't imagine this is super. But now, her and Draco's relationship, I would like to also see more of.
Yeah, I do think that there's actually love there on both sides.
Yeah, I think Draco has more disdain for his father.
Yeah, I think Draco's complications...
for a lot of different reasons.
Yes. No, I completely agree. I think the father's the weakest in that family.
Yeah.
In terms of, like having solid relationships with the other people.
Which is interesting. I think we also need to do an episode after this on just the Malfoys. Lucius, Narcissa, and Draco.
Absolutely.
And the interactions between the three of them. And how that family dynamic really works through both pre-Second Wizarding War and during the events of this book. Because I think it's probably different. And how that changes could be really interesting. But anyway. Narcissa greets them at the door, and she intends to bring them to Draco for identification, which seems super logical. If anybody knows them, it would be Draco.
Yep.
Harry notes during this time, since he's in such immense danger, he can't dip into those Voldy scenes or premonition, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
He can't keep dipping into Voldy's thoughts. But he realizes the key to keeping Voldy out all this time is not removing emotion, but overwhelming fear.
That is such a dark thing for Harry to realize, but also it's just such a Harry moment to me.
It's a crazy thing. Like, Snape this whole time, remove emotion. You
Yep.
can't have emotion. It's a weakness. It opens you up.
Nope.
No, you have to be so overwhelmed. I think it's truly any emotion, if it's overwhelming, would probably do the trick. Mm-hmm. He's just in an insane amount of fear at this particular moment.
So that's the prevailing emotion.
Absolutely.
It honestly just reminds me of when Harry was able to figure out that he was being imperious.
Yeah.
Because he just, like, I saw someone talk about this on Reddit where they were like, the reason that he was able to identify it was because it was too relaxing, and he's used to having some background stress in his life, so, like, that is what would trigger him to come out of it. And this just really, like, it's the opposite effect of that. It's like he's so stressed out from all the things in his life that it's actually a benefit. And it was a benefit back then, too, that this kid's just in constant stress.
I wonder what his resting heart rate would be. Like, is it always elevated? Like, he's always going to get attacked from around a corner? So he's, like, always on edge?
Yeah.
Maybe that helps him in Quidditch, too, because he's always, like, looking around, being like, oh, my goodness, what's going to happen next? And then he can find the snitch.
His adrenal glands are just going to, like, burn out by the time he's 20.
He's lived a life. But yeah, it's interesting how some of that can actually help him. It's like a constant fight or flight. Mm-hmm. He lives in a constant fight or flight.
Yes.
Which, that's got to be exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
But you can't even get sleep because half of this fight or flight happens when you're asleep, which is, that's crazy. Anyway, Lucius greets this interesting trio and assortment of individuals with extreme excitement. Because if this is Harry Potter, all of his troubles will go away.
He's so scummy. And this scene really just highlights it for me. Where
he's not a good person.
No, he's not. And he's such an opportunist. And that's why he's in this place. Because he's just a sniveling sycophant of Voldy. And it's just, it's gross.
Nothing you said is wrong. However, I will decide to put some pity on Lucius. He's in a bad way right now.
He got himself in this.
Yes.
By not having a spine.
Well, if he had a spine, he'd be dead. He wouldn't be alive.
I feel like there were different things he could have done.
Oh, I think he's being punished. Well, he's being punished for a couple of reasons. He's being punished for giving the diary up back in Chamber of Secrets.
Yes. Which that one I'm on his side with. Like, if someone hands you a journal and just is like, hey, this is sort of important, and then you think they're dead, and then you feel like tormenting an 11-year-old, it seems fine.
I don't know. I don't know that I would give any 11-year-old a diary of my former master.
Okay, let me put a disclaimer on this. I'm not saying that you should torment 11-year-olds, but I mean, I think it's unreasonable.
Please be clear about your intentions.
Yes, this podcast does not condone torturing 11-year-olds with haunted journals.
Thank you for clarifying.
You can quote me on that. I think it's unreasonable Voldemort is punishing him for that. I think that's on Voldemort. Like, if you don't want someone to check your journal when they think that you've been dead for a long period of time, maybe get good and don't be dead for a long period of time. But secondly...
So you're blaming Voldy from dying?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm saying don't punish someone just because they thought you were dead. Because you were, like, close to death. So, like, if you didn't want to be close to death, get good. Throughout these books, all Lucius does is talk himself up. And try to be big and try to be important. And that's what he's doing when he's bribing people at the ministry. And he's pushing through bookstores and whatever. So I feel like he was trying to do that to Voldemort. Probably tried to do some over-the-top display of like, oh my lord, I'm the most competent, you should trust me, I can do all of these things. And then really messed it up because he doesn't know what he's doing. And the better play, because I also imagine that this is where some of the tension with him and Narcissa is coming from. Because I think Narcissa is smarter in the sense that she's just going to put her head down, speak only when spoken to, do only what she's told, and get out. Lucius keeps trying to curry favor, and then he keeps messing it up. And then that's why he's being punished. So I do think that this is his fault, that he's in this position because he shouldn't have been so desperate to garner power.
So I think Lucius has been in really rough shape this set of 7 books. Mm-hmm. Like, he starts out early, very high horse, in a good position because of all that stuff you mentioned about bribing ministry and being quote-unquote important. Then, even though he's still in good position for a while, his first mistake happens in book 2. Mm-hmm. And then it escalates into book 5 with the mess up at the ministry. I would like to see Lucius in the first Wizarding War. Like, where and how did he garner this much respect?
Yeah.
How did he gain his position as, like, Voldy's right-hand man as a Death Eater? Because that's why he was given the diary. That's why he was given the job of secure Potter, secure the prophecy in the Department of Mysteries.
Yeah.
Like, what did he do? Because all we've seen is negatives from Lucius.
Yes.
What did he do to achieve said status?
No, that's a really good point.
Would be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
No, I completely because obviously agree. He did something to garner that much respect.
Yeah, he has to have been successful at some point.
It's a fall from grace. That means he had some grace at some point.
No, that's totally fair.
So, I mean, like, that would be interesting to see.
Yeah. Also, I realize it's Narcissa and
Narcissa?
Not Narcissa, and I don't know why my brain decided that that's how it was going to say her name. But I know her name. It's Narcissa.
So Lucius is elated with excitement about this potential capture. However, Draco is unsure that it's even them. He doesn't really identify Harry because of all the facial changes from the Jinx. He won't look at Ron and Hermione in the face. He barely wants to look Harry in the face. Because I think if he did, one, he would know instantly that it's all three of them, and two, they would know that he's giving them up. And for whatever reason, and this is something that I'm sure you would love to get into, but for whatever reason, he seems reluctant to want to give them up.
I so badly want this to be where Draco starts to get it together. So badly. This is the inkling of the Slytherin redemption that we need, because Draco is actually doing something where even it's going against something that would be directly beneficial for him and his family.
Yep.
Because he knows that it's the wrong thing to do. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. In this one very, very, very small scene, just Draco being reluctant after 6 books of him being steadfast and being family-oriented and Slytherin to the core, and he's going to do all of these things to be just like his dad, right? That's the parallel from book 1 of Draco wants to be his dad. He's said it numerous times in the beginning. It's kind of faded out, but even with the parallels of they're both in the Death Eaters. Mm-hmm. He's the only one that we just got done talking about. He's the youngest one by far who's a Death Eater. His path is very similar to his dad's. And yet right here we have the best example of the biggest difference between Lucius and Draco, and why this could be a beautiful Slytherin redemption.
I think it's really, really fascinating. His arc, like, through maybe halfway through Half-Blood Prince to a little more than halfway through Deathly Hallows, you're seeing a much different side of who Draco Malfoy is. And I think you're getting, as people grow up, just think about literally this is roughly high school years, secondary school years. So you're one thing when you're 11, but by the time you're 17 and older, you might have a firmer grasp of who you really are as a person. Your likes, your dislikes, your interests, your loves, what makes you tick, and what gives you joy. And I think Draco is, at least in from what we know and what we've seen of Draco, in the last year or so in this book timeline, he's seeming to get a better grasp of who he is as a human being.
Yes.
And I think the reality he's starting to grasp is that he is, in fact, not his father.
Yes.
At least here, because the excitement of Lucius to be like, let's give these kids up.
Yep.
To him being like, I'm not sure,
such a big
I don't
contrast.
know. It's a very big contrast, just in their personalities and how they're facing this one circumstance. It's interesting.
And what they're each choosing to do, because technically in this scenario, Draco is not being Slytherin. There's a lot of Slytherin that involves self-preservation, and Draco is actually choosing...
Is this the most Hufflepuff Draco's ever been?
I was actually going to say Gryffindor.
Oh, you can make that argument too. You can make either argument.
You could. Not Ravenclaw.
No, honestly, the Ravenclaw option might be to...
Is kind of the Slytherin option
almost
here.
the Slytherin option. Yeah.
That's a very fine line.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But and I think Draco has also seen a lot, not just... He's learning about himself, but he's also learning about himself in the context of, I think when he was little, he was parroting a lot of what his parents were saying. He was looking up to his father, and I think he's finally seeing his father for who he really is over the last year or two within the books. And I think that that's also been a bit of an awakening, because I think Draco has stopped idolizing him.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's interesting to get Lucius's excitement, Draco's reluctance. Narcissa falls somewhere in the middle, because she examines the wand and notes that Harry's wand doesn't match what Ollivander has described it as, which is interesting. So I feel like Narcissus is the one who's grounded the most here and is just like being able to cut through either emotion, just like, hey, let's look at the facts here. What do we got?
Narcissa is channeling the Ravenclaw here.
Yeah.
Narcissa is... I think that Narcissa, she's always described as cold. I think she's very calculating. I think she's very stoic, and I think she is everything that Lucius wants to be.
There's a take. Ooh, okay.
Hot take.
A little bit of a hot take. That's an interesting take, though. Yeah, I like the idea that she's like, okay, well, how can we objectively prove this?
Yep.
Goes to the wand. Smart.
Very smart.
She also says they don't want the same treatment that Raoul and Dolohov got, which is interesting. I had theorized that we had heard of Raoul getting tortured, but we didn't hear of Dolohov getting tortured. Does that mean that Dolohov is a higher rank than Raoul, and maybe he got let off the hook while Raoul is the one that got just all of the punishment from the diner scene? Nope, apparently they both got tortured.
Yep.
So, at the very least, we can say Voldy's an...
Equal opportunity offender?
Yeah. At least he does it equally. He doesn't, like...
He doesn't play favorites.
He doesn't play favorites. He doesn't discriminate amongst his Death Eaters. He's like, you screwed up, torture.
Yep.
Well, okay. Narcissa does say that she recognized Hermione. And Lucius says, hey, wait a second. That's definitely a Weasley. That's definitely Ron.
He would recognize Ron.
I feel like, yeah, this is a very interesting, like, oh, one recognizes one. Oh, great. So when they come to those recognitions, they're like, hey, wait a second. This might actually be Harry Potter. And Draco's like, I guess. Maybe,
I love that.
Sorta.
He's so non-committal.
Very much
But
so.
it's not even non-committal. He acts disinterested. Like, he really just doesn't want to have to deal with any of the reality in front of him.
So we're about to take our break here for halfway through this chapter, and there is some crazy stuff that happens in this second part, so stay with us. We will be right back.
It's about to go down.
Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf.
All right, so we are back for part 2 of Malfoy Manor, and this is where the action really kicks off. We have Bellatrix entering the scene. And Harry, predictably, his fear increases dramatically.
No.
Yeah. She immediately wants to call Voldy.
Of course.
Lucius and Bellatrix and Greyback, all 3 of them, argue about who should call Voldy and claim credit for the capture. Because this entire time, Greyback's like, hey, Mr. Malfoy, we're going to remember who brought him in, right? And then he's like, I would really, really like that reward money. I want that money that Voldy has put out there. And Bellatrix is like, reward money? I will give you money. Like, get out of here.
I like that Greyback keeps telling Lucius that Lucius needs to remember who got it, and Lucius keeps being like, yep, and then immediately turning around and being like, when Voldemort sees what we've gotten. And Greyback keeps being like, did you just forget that you said...
Greyback becomes increasingly more aggravated with each time he says Mr. Malfoy.
Yes.
Which
is great.
I expect the first time he almost does it in a differential manner, like, I'm deferring to you, please, Mr. Malfoy, can you blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then he gets more and more aggravated, because let's not forget, Fenrir Greyback is a murderer in his own right. So just the idea of him having to be differential probably makes him angry.
Yes.
But he realizes where he's at in this pecking order. Again, going back to, he doesn't have a mark and they do.
Yep.
So he has to take a back seat here.
I just enjoy Lucius's consistent blowing him off.
Yep.
Like telling him it's fine and then immediately acting like that conversation didn't
Can
happen.
you imagine if you were a menacing individual and you just got blown off repeatedly? That'd be so disrespectful.
That would rankle.
Yeah, wouldn't it? Oh, man. Bellatrix realizes that, hey, wait a second. We may all perish if Voldy comes now. And everybody's like, what?
Yeah, where did that come from?
You just wanted to call him. We just had an argument about who was going to call him. And she's like, no, everybody must stop. This is a problem. You guys don't even know how big of a problem we even have here.
You don't even know.
You don't even know. And then she proceeds to stun all 4 snatchers that aren't named Fenrir Greyback. However, he did not just miss out on all of this wonderful spell work by Bellatrix. He gets forced into a kneeling position with his arms outstretched. This is going to be a little bit of a deep dive for all my Marvel people out there. But does anybody remember the Doctor Strange movie when he first fights Caecilius in the Sanctum? And Cloak keeps wanting him to go towards this certain thing, and Doctor Strange keeps fighting it. And he finally grabs the thing, throws it on Caecilius. And this is exactly the position Caecilius is put in.
Yeah,
kneeling
no, you're right.
with his arms outstretched.
You're right, it is.
This is exactly the position.
Yeah.
That's all I thought of.
Oh, that was a nice...
That's a nice pull?
Yeah.
I'm a nerd. Yeah, I'm a big nerd.
Wait, you're a nerd?
I know. This is surprising to many, many people. Between my Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Marvel references while on a Harry Potter podcast, I know this is very surprising for me. So yeah, that's the exact position Greyback was put in. Harry notes, and this is a great quote describing Bellatrix. Harry notes that Bellatrix is a witch with, quote, prodigious skill and no conscience. That is crazy.
That's a dangerous combination.
It's so dangerous. And I don't think people give enough credit to the no conscience bit, because she does not care.
She does not.
She would curse probably anybody in this room other than Narcissa. I think she's got a soft spot for Narcissa. Other than that, I think she would kill anybody in this room in a heartbeat.
I feel like she would hesitate to kill Narcissa.
You think she would
I think
do
she
that
would
deed?
still. I think if Voldemort came to her and was like, "You gotta off your sister," she'd be like,
I think that's
sorry.
the only circumstance.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. But I think that's the only circumstance in which...
Yeah, she would do it. I love how unhinged she is in a, like, scariest person in the room vibe.
Well, Jen, that is a great setup for my next question.
Perfect.
Since we've talked a lot about Bellatrix's skill and lack of a conscience, and we've talked about, Fenrir Greyback is an actual murderer. My question to you is, who's worse, Greyback or Bellatrix? Who's a worse individual?
That is a wonderful question.
I think most people immediately go to Bellatrix.
See, I understand that inclination to go to Bellatrix because she's deeply unhinged. And she's not someone that you want to be in a room with.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually leaning Fenrir.
Were you?
Yes.
Okay, why?
So the worst thing, well, probably not the worst thing Bellatrix could do, but Bellatrix likes killing. Bellatrix will torture you, but she likes killing.
Yep.
I feel like Fenrir is worse because he specifically likes maiming children and also like turning other people into werewolves. It's not an affliction that's thought of well in the wizarding community. He's essentially ostracizing these children when he turns them into werewolves and setting them up for a very miserable life. Lupin is an example of that, and how he's, out of... They've described his clothes as being tattered. He has to deal with turning into a werewolf once a month, which doesn't sound like a very fun thing. It's very dangerous for werewolves to be around people that they love because they could kill them when they turn, and they'll know that they'll kill them because they can remember what happens when they turn. They just can't do anything about it. I would argue that that's kind of worse than death. Like, I think if you asked me if I'd rather Bellatrix kill me or Fenrir turn me into a werewolf, that I wouldn't be able to be around my loved ones and family for fear of killing them, I would say the isolation's going to get me first.
My stance in this debate is actually what you just ended on. So I think everybody jumps to Bellatrix because of her long, detailed history in what she has done.
And because she's nuts. She's not just... Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. There's evil that's like Voldemort. But then there's unhinged. And unhinged is always worse. Because at least Voldemort's got a plan. At least Voldemort's got an end point and like an end goal.
He's goal-oriented.
He's goal-oriented. His goals are evil. But he's goal-oriented. Bellatrix is just the kind of person that, like, you could be walking by her and she could be in a good mood and she'll just kill you for fun. You can't predict
chaotic
her.
Evil.
Yeah, she is super chaotic evil and you can't predict her. And it's the unhinged part of that I think is what people fear most.
Sure. I mean, her laundry list of achievements, I guess, in her eyes, is long. And it's noted. I mean, going back to the Longbottoms and what she did to them and that family is horrendous.
Yes.
And then more, recently, obviously, what she's done at the Ministry of Magic at the end of Order of the Phoenix, all the way up through Half-Blood Prince and into this book. It's a long story of terrible, awful violence.
That she's enjoying. She gets pleasure out of that.
I think it's important to also acknowledge Greyback is awful. So awful, in fact, that even the other Death Eaters are like, you're awful. Dude
needs to calm down.
Yeah, like they even give him a little bit of a wide gap. They think poorly of him because of what he exactly does. If anybody's watching the show Harley Quinn, and they have the Legion of Doom, and Lex Luthor, noted villain, is up there talking about the Legion of Doom. They exiled a member of the Legion of Doom for using a bad word on TV. And it's like, sorry, that's not our brand of evil. Like, we have standards, and that's not our brand of evil.
We have evil standards.
I feel like that's almost the Death Eaters here. It's like, we have a standard. Mm-hmm. You are a different kind of evil that we do not support.
Yes.
And part of that is, like you said, attacking children and turning them into, obviously, they also have the speciesist kind of feelings towards him of, like, werewolves are obviously lesser than.
Yes.
So there's that as well. But I think it's a combination of both. Now you're also turning other people into this lesser than species that's unacceptable.
Yes.
Unclean. So there's that. And then what you were saying at the end there, let's be real. If you met, you wouldn't want to meet either in a dark alley, understandably. Mm-hmm. But if you met Bellatrix in a dark alley and you met Fenrir Greyback smelling of blood and like just this like stench about him, and he's in his like werewolf form, I would probably rather take my chances with Bellatrix.
100%.
Because like you were also saying, Bellatrix may torture you.
Yeah.
She's more keen to probably just kill you.
That's fine.
Fenrir, I think, would mess you up.
Fenrir doesn't want to kill you. Fenrir wants to torture you.
He wants to torment you and to make you live with whatever the consequences are.
Yes.
Which are substantial.
Yes.
He's also not, he wouldn't mind killing you. He will kill you.
Yeah.
From time to time.
Yeah, if mood strikes him.
He'll also eat you. He talks frequently about, like, eating people.
Yeah.
Like,
and he's making really gross comments towards Hermione in this episode, or
Very.
in this chapter.
And he talks about her flesh. He uses the word flesh a couple of times. It's this is, again, the kind of thing that the Death Eaters are even like, hey, we're not that.
Yeah.
That's not our brand of evil here.
We are many things, but...
There's a reason, and I think part of it is that he's werewolf, but I think there is a reason why he doesn't have a dark mark.
Yes.
And that's part of it.
Not only do they not like him, but I think they also are being prejudiced towards him because he's a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just using him for the muscle.
100%.
But they don't actually like him or want him or consider him equal in any sort of sense.
You just saw, like, even Draco in the tower at the end of Half-Blood Prince. He was like, I didn't know he was going to be here. I didn't want him here. I didn't, I don't feel comfortable around this guy. Like,
yep.
And even Dumbledore was like, you invited this to where your friends are? Like, why would you do that? And Draco's like, I didn't wanna. I didn't invite him.
I do find it funny in that scene where they're like, of all of the things that he's commenting on, they're still dissing Fenrir.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I knew you were going to bring in your Death Eaters, but you had to bring in the werewolf. And even, like you said, and even Draco's like, I mean, I didn't want the werewolf. If I'm Fenrir, I'm like, guys, I'm right here.
Yeah.
Like, they're not even trying to hide it.
No. So, and to your point earlier, that's why I think Lucius is so dismissive of him repeatedly. He's like, you're not one of us. You will never be one of us.
Yeah.
You are clearly the last person that's going to get any sort of reward for any of this.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that might be a good poll for this episode, actually. Because it'll be interesting to see how many people actually go the Fenrir option. Because I think Bellatrix is such a popular pick.
She's popular because she's nuts. And I get it.
She does reveal some interesting information, though. Which I'm almost surprised she reveals so openly. But she reveals that Snape sent the sword of Godric Gryffindor to her vault in Gringotts. And what sets her off and why she stuns the 4 other Snatchers and puts Greyback in a compromising position is because she spots the sword of Gryffindor and was like, wait a second, why is that here? That shouldn't be here. She instructs Draco to move all of the Snatchers to the courtyard where he should kill them, or if he doesn't want to dispatch of them, just leave them for me. Leave them for Bellatrix. That's so Greyback at least gets to stay in the room.
Yeah.
The other 4 get killed.
It's fine.
Whew.
Yeah, I mean, it's Bellatrix.
Yeah.
This is why I would have thought twice about going to the Malfoy Manor. I get that it's a safe haven and it's not directly calling Voldemort, but she's nuts.
Draco, once again, is very reluctant to carry out these orders. And that's, again, Bellatrix can sense that in him, and that's why she says, if you're not up to it, just leave it to me. Which she has clearly sensed some part of Draco that's not like her and not like Lucius, different. Which I think is an interesting note.
I think it's interesting that the way that you're phrasing it is she tells Draco, like, oh, well, if you don't want to, you can do it. When in the book, she's very much like, if you're not man enough to do it.
She calls him out a little harsher. Yeah.
She's much harsher with it. Because I think she's a little bit scornful that Draco isn't. Bellatrix is very passionate about serving the Dark Lord. I think that she feels like everyone should be as passionate as she is about serving the Dark Lord. I think she's very judgmental of Draco for not being nearly as enthusiastic as she is about serving the Dark Lord.
Well, can you really blame her? I mean, everybody has a crazy aunt. Bellatrix is adamant that they are all in great danger. She instructs the prisoners to be placed in the cellar until she can find out more. So she wants the unknown, horribly scarred, disfigured individual and presumably Ron to be placed in the cellar. However, she keeps the girl. And Ron protests immediately and is hit by Bellatrix with a blow that echoes around the room. Wow.
Respect.
Whew. She then takes a short silver knife from her robes, drags Hermione by the hair.
That has to hurt.
To the center of the room. Greyback ends up locking them in the cellar. As the door closes, Hermione lets out a loud scream.
So things aren't going great.
No. They are in a world of hurt, both metaphorically and literally physically.
Yes.
This is not great.
No.
And as Hermione is screaming, Ron also screams. He shrieks, and Harry keeps telling him to shut up.
I think that's funny. Harry's got a point, though.
Harry has an absolute point.
Ron's not going to get anything accomplished by yelling. Harry is much more level-headed in this scenario. You have to strategize. You have to figure out, assess your surroundings, figure out what your options are. That's how you can help Hermione.
Wait, are you giving Harry credit about thinking logically in a dangerous moment?
I know, it's weird.
What?
It feels weird to me, too. He's actually being very rational and logical right now, and Ron is panicking.
Yep. A voice breaks through the darkness in the cellar, and it's Luna. Luna ends up freeing them with an old nail she found on the floor.
That she stabs Ron with because he won't stop moving.
Correct.
Also, I hope they're up to date on tetanus.
You know, I did also have that same thought, I gotta say. I guess they've hoarded this nail, because they've also indicated that Ollivander is also here, and they've freed both. Obviously, Luna is free from her bindings, and Ollivander, though he's not in great shape, is technically free of his bindings.
That nail is the MVP of the chapter.
Kinda, yeah, actually. Which is...
So far.
That is true. We will have a definite MVP here coming up in a minute. Possibly the MVP of the whole series. But
yes.
Bellatrix continues interrogating Hermione about the sword, and she uses a knife, and she uses the Cruciatus Curse.
Ouch.
Yep. Luna ends up lighting the cellar with Ron's Deluminator. Luna informs them that the cellar is quite inescapable, as Harry and Ron bolt around the cellar trying to find any trapdoor or possible window or way out or whatever. And they're like, we tried that. He's been in here for a while.
Yeah.
He's tried everything.
Wait, we were supposed to look around to
escape?
escape?
We were supposed to escape? Yeah. Oh, our bad. Yeah. So Ron and Harry are very desperate to help Hermione, obviously. Harry rummages through his pouch to see if there's anything that could possibly help him, which, why did he even have the pouch? If I were one of them, I would have removed that as well.
Yep.
And the Deluminator. Like, how do you have the Deluminator still and the pouch?
They didn't get searched at all?
Very poorly.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that goes to what the wizarding world values as a threat.
True, because they got their wands taken.
They got their wands. They're like, if we have their wands, they're useless without them. Which would also be a pureblood way of looking at things, instead of like maybe a muggle-born way of looking at things, where it's like, if they don't have a wand, they're useless.
Yep.
Well, not exactly.
Not quite.
So that's an oversight by them. But as he's rummaging around the pouch, he sees a brilliant blue eye looking at him in the mirror shard. And Harry says, "Help us. We're in the cellar of Malfoy Manor. Help us." Lucius then beckons Draco to get the goblin from the cellar to determine if the sword is indeed fake. Which, yeah, if you have a goblin, and this is a goblin-made sword, that would be a pretty logical step.
He's thinking. Now, the one thing that I did like, though, with the mirror shard is, so he sees the blue eye looking, he says, "Help us," and then the blue eye is gone. Mm-hmm. And it's gone so fast that he wonders if he just imagined it the whole time.
Yep. A house elf appears in the cellar.
Yay!
Dobby has come to rescue you.
Dobby.
Harry confirms Dobby can indeed disapparate out of the cellar with humans, which is an important distinction. If he can get in and out, that's great. Can humans get in and out?
Yep.
And Dobby's like, yeah. I got this. And Harry instructs Dobby to grab Luna, Dean, and Mr. Ollivander to... And then Ron jumps in, Shell Cottage on the outskirts of Tinworth. It's where Bill and Fleur have been staying. and that's where he stayed during the holidays. Ollivander, seemingly unconscious, Dobby grabs his hand, and then Luna and Dean protest. They want to stay and help the fight, but I think Harry rightfully stands up and is like, this is not your fight. You've been in here, get out while you can. We'll deal with this. You get out. And the loud crack of Dobby disappearing with all of them causes concern. And Lucius asks Draco to send Wormtail to the cellar.
I'm surprised that they can hear the crack.
I mean, the apparition that's a loud sound. We've had it noted that it's pretty loud.
I just wonder what the acoustics are then. Well,
we've also heard, like, when they were all up there for the meeting in one of the early chapters, whatever it was, 1, or whatever, when Voldy's having that meeting, and we hear Ollivander groaning in the cellar.
Oh, that's true.
So if we can hear an elderly man who's not in great shape groaning,
you can hear it crack.
Probably a loud crack.
That's fair. Whenever they say cellar, I always imagine it's much further.
Yeah, and in stone, you'd feel like it's probably pretty, but apparently they can.
Okay.
I think we have a relatively rare moment. We've been on Lucius this whole episode, but I think we have a rare moment of Lucius showing that he is a concerned father, because he's like, wait, if there is something wrong down there, I don't want you going. Send Wormtail instead.
I respect that.
It's a rare moment of fatherhood from Lucius, being like, I don't want my son going down there if something's going wrong.
No.
Send Wormtail instead.
I think, and that's reasonable. That's a reasonable take.
I'm projecting that on Lucius, but I'm going to give him that benefit of the doubt.
I would. I think that's fair.
So, as Wormtail approaches the cellar door, Ron and Harry form their ambush. So Ron and Harry get on either side of the door. They turn on the lights in the cellar and ambush Wormtail as he enters the cellar and is momentarily stunned by a vacant lit room, which would be a little disconcerting if you knew there were prisoners down there and you just open a door to nothing.
It's supposed to be dark and full of people, and instead it's bright and empty.
Yep. Wormtail grasps Harry's throat with the silver hand, and Harry says, "You're going to kill me. You owe me for saving your life." Wormtail relaxes just a bit, and Harry frees himself, surprising both individuals.
Yeah, I thought that was a great detail. Even Wormtail surprised.
Wormtail was a little surprised that he relaxed enough for Harry to get away. Ron immediately steals Wormtail's wand, and then Wormtail looks on in terror as his own silver hand begins to turn on him and begins strangling him. Voldy's insurance policy should Wormtail betray him, even if it's by pity. Wormtail dies. We get a big character death.
Yep. Voldemort had said after he conjured the silver hand for Wormtail, "May your loyalty never waver again."
Yeah.
So I looked this up because I was curious to know if there was information on how he did join the Death Eaters. And it seems as though he began working intentionally as a spy because he came to believe that nothing could be gained from opposing Voldemort. He intentionally flipped. He was given the Dark Mark and spied on the Order of the Phoenix. And then he was more than likely responsible for the Order's extremely heavy losses in the later years of the war. So I'm getting this from the Harry Potter fandom wiki.
That is not a great look for Wormtail.
It is not.
That is not a good look. I don't know that I can even spin that well.
I don't think that there is a way. I think he's just not...
Because if he intentionally flipped...
He did.
Then that's kind of going away from any defense I could form about intimidation. And well, I guess it still plays a role because generally if he thinks Voldy's unbeatable...
Yeah.
Then join him rather than...
Yeah, you shouldn't be ratting out your friends.
No. I wonder then how he felt when James died that night. It still couldn't have been good for him, right?
I would still hope that he had some level of
remorse.
Yes.
I would think that I would hope that he did. And I think this instance in this chapter confirms that, because you look at Harry Potter and what's the famous thing that's said about Harry Potter? He looks like his father and he has his mother's eyes.
Yep.
Well, he's now looking into the face of two of his best friends and their child, who did save him already.
Yep.
Despite what he's done. I think this is a level of remorse that he's felt.
Yes. But I think that that's intentional. I think that this is he has this moment of mercy.
Yeah.
For this guy. And that's what.
Let me be clear. As much as I've tried to defend Wormtail, let me be absolutely clear. This is far short of a redemption.
Oh yeah, this is like...
Let me be absolutely clear on that. He has done some awful, terrible things that cannot be taken back, ever. That being said, the third Marauder is now gone.
Yep.
So 3 of the 4. Big time death that we have. Wormtail is gone. Ron and Harry do reflect on the idea of, oh my gosh, he's gone. Wormtail is gone. We watched this man die. They tried to free him.
Yeah.
They tried to release that grip of the hand, and they could not. Which I think also speaks to Ron and Harry and who they are.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, we don't like Wormtail, and there's a lot to dislike about Wormtail,
yes.
but they believed he did not deserve to die.
Yeah.
So they tried to save him, but this was some magic from Voldy that they're not overcoming.
Nope.
So they return to the fight. Griphook says the sword is actually a fake. So before Griphook gets taken to go to see if the sword is real or not, Harry does whisper in Griphook's ear, "We know it's real, tell him it's fake."
Yep.
And Griphook upholds that, tells him it's fake. Bellatrix, happy with the goblin's news, slashes him across the face.
She's unhinged.
To your point about even if she's totally happy,
yep.
she will kill you in a heartbeat.
100%.
This is an example of such things. Super happy with what he delivered to her, and she punishes him for it.
Just for fun.
She then quickly proceeds to touch her dark mark, calling Voldy.
I do like the idea that they will be able to tell who pressed the dark mark.
Yeah, it's like call waiting.
Yeah.
Or like that caller ID. It's like caller ID, which is really weird. Like Voldy is just sitting there in that cell, which we get. Harry flashes to Voldy, and the skeletal prisoner is taunting Voldy until there's a burst of green light killing the man. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, oh, I can't believe this. I'm really getting called to work now.
Yep.
I'm in my leisure time. I'm on holiday. Don't they know this? But yeah, it must be like, I wonder if there's something that specifically tells them.
Mm-hmm. I want to know how he knows.
Is it a sense that's shot up? Like, Bellatrix is calling me. Or is it like the dark mark...
It's got to be...
transforms into like Bellatrix across his arm or something.
That would be really funny. Well, but it also has to tell him location. Because he knows where to find her.
That I could almost see as like, it almost becomes like a port key of sorts almost, except it doesn't obviously transport him immediately there. He's got to travel.
Right.
But I almost get the sense it's like a different form of the Deluminator's magic, where it's like, and here's the GPS signal, go here. You know, maybe. Well, I guess, again, caller ID. Like, when I get a call from somewhere, it's like, this number from California.
I like the idea that he could have, like, custom colors for people. So, like, Bellatrix calls him and his dark mark turns, like magenta.
You're just saying this because you love the idea of a tattoo that can either morph colors at will or morph form at will.
You got me.
Like, that's what you're really
That would be amazing.
It would be pretty spectacular, actually. That'd be pretty cool. If someone is in a specific tattoo artist or knows anything about this, let us know some cool ideas that you could pull off with a dark mark.
Yes.
Because I'm sure Jenn, being the Slytherin tattooed individual that she is, would be interested.
We can all agree it is such a cool logo.
It's a very cool logo.
It is a skull snake. That's like the quintessential tattoo. Throw in a rose and that's like you're
See,
covered.
now I just think of, we talk all the time about the Death Eater's crafting. I could just imagine Voldy and his Death Eater buds at Hogwarts being like, we gotta come up with a cool design, guys. What do we got? Like, let's draw them out.
Oh my god, a bunch of teenage boys just like
drawing
to
in a
draw
corner.
these. Oh, that's so what happened.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Let us know on any Dark Mark tattoo ideas.
Also, just let us know if you have any Harry Potter tattoos.
Yeah, so Jen does a great job running our Instagram. Shoot us pictures.
Yeah.
And, we'll share them if any.
Yeah, post them in our stories.
Yeah.
There is a Harry Potter tattoo account that I do follow and I do share from occasionally. Hogwarts tattoo. But there's a bunch of different Harry Potter tattoo accounts that I should actually start following and posting more from.
Hogwarts Tattoo on Instagram. Check them out. Like I said, if you have any tattoos or Harry Potter artwork in general that you guys do, doesn't have to be tattoos. Send us your stuff on Instagram. We'll repost it. We love seeing that kind of artwork. So, but getting back to the actual scene at hand, Bellatrix ends up offering Hermione to Greyback. Like we said, Greyback has been particularly interested in Hermione.
So gross.
It's disturbing, yeah, to say the least. At that mention, though, Ron bursts into the room. Ron hits Bellatrix with Expelliarmus, not Harry.
I was shocked.
Ron hits Bellatrix with Expelliarmus, and it works because Harry catches the wand. Say what you will about this spell, it is useful. That's why Snape taught it to them way back when. He's like, hey guys, if we're learning how to duel, the first spell you should learn is how to disarm your opponent.
Okay, to be fair, that's some pretty solid logic.
You're coming to this now in Book 7 after disparaging the spell so often.
I will still disparage this spell.
Hey, if it works, it works.
I mean,
you're gonna tell me if you have a lock to open, you're not gonna learn Alohomora or Accio. That's a level 1 spell. If I want to get a drink from the fridge and I don't want to get up, I'm gonna use a level 1 spell.
Is your life dependent upon getting that drink from the fridge?
Yes, I don't want to get up. I'm missing the football game. Come on, no, I don't want to get up.
Your life is dependent.
You know, if I get up, I'm gonna miss something important.
Oh my God. I have no words for you.
The reason they teach these spells so early is not because they're simple. It's because they're super crucial as a building block of living in the wizarding
Their
world.
lives are on the line.
Yeah.
At least do like a stunning spell. But Expelliarmus, she's still a threat. She still has a knife.
That's true, but now Harry has a wand too. What does Harry do with that wand? He immediately stuns Lucius.
Again, stunning, but cool. Okay, I'll give him that.
There you go. Stuns Lucius, who falls to the floor. Draco, Narcissa, and Greyback all fire spells, all missing. Bellatrix holds a knife to Hermione's throat.
Do you think that they intentionally missed? I think Draco intentionally missed. I don't know about Narcissa.
No, there's no way Narcissa and Greyback intentionally miss.
Definitely not Greyback. I'm a little on the fence about Narcissa.
To be fair, they all miss because Harry dove and tackled Ron.
Okay, that's fair.
So, I mean, I think they were all gunning for it. He just got Ron out of the way in time.
Okay.
But Bellatrix holds a knife to Hermione's throat, and it enables Bellatrix to disarm Harry and Ron, who then hold up their hands, drop their wand. Draco runs, gets the wands, collects them. Harry, by the way, for the record, is now back to being Harry. The jinx that he was hit with has worn off. It is very clearly Harry Potter now. However, there is a peculiar sound coming from the ceiling. And the chandelier above Bellatrix and Hermione drops to the floor. And Bellatrix drops Hermione as she dives to the side. Hermione is caught, because she is in not good shape right now, but she is caught underneath the chandelier. Griphook is also happens to be underneath the chandelier.
I really like this scene in the movies.
Oh, it's great in the movies.
It's phenomenal in the
It
movies.
is so well done in the movies.
It is.
Because you hear that little
Yep.
tink, 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 and then it just drops.
Well, and you see him casually doing it. Like he's doing
they all
it
look
so
up.
yeah, they all look up and he's just slowly turning the thing and then it falls. And it's a nice comedic break in the middle of this really stressful fight scene.
I think in this, they have it... It's really comedic the way they do it, with him sitting on top.
Yeah.
Here, I think he's, like, standing off to the side.
Yeah,
by, like, the cellar.
This one is much more in tone with the rest of the fight. The film one is kind of this moment of levity.
Because no one heard him crack back in.
No.
So I think he came back in as the spells were being shot. Mm-hmm. And then he just sees what's going on, and, like, from where the cellar was, like, where Harry and Ron just came from, he's, like, manipulating the chandelier to drop.
Yeah.
Ron runs to help Hermione, and Harry wrestles 3 wands from Draco's hands, which makes Draco seem pretty weak here. I will give him that it's hard to probably hold on to 3 wands.
I really don't think Draco's trying.
I think everybody's surprised that a chandelier just dropped out of nowhere.
I mean, that too.
Like,
I don't think that Draco is really given this 100%.
You don't know. Maybe he was very attached to that chandelier. Maybe that was like his big...
emotional support chandelier.
I mean, maybe he was just very emotionally connected to that as part of his history in that house.
Yes.
And when that dropped and broke, he was quite concerned.
Tragic.
Or he's maybe not just trying as hard as he could. That's fair. So Harry points all 3 of these wands at Greyback and stuns him, and he goes flying backwards.
That's a boss move.
Greyback might be dead.
That's fine.
3 stunning spells to the, like, I'm assuming the chest.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, he's a werewolf, so he's got some bulky defense there with that kind of magic blood inside him, but
isn't it McGonagall gets stunned like that?
She also
in the
got
last
stunned by
book?
multiple spells in the
and
chest.
she was in the
she was in St. Mungo's for a while.
Yeah.
So a little older.
True.
And a little less werewolfy.
Also true.
More cat-like, though. So 3 stunning spells to Greyback sends him flying backward. Narcissa pulls Draco and gets out of danger. She's just like, we out.
Yep.
Like,
smart.
We're done. We're getting out of here. Another parent moment, though, where Narcissa's like, I don't care what happens, Draco, you're not in this anymore. Like, let's get out of here.
I don't like Narcissa, but I like her as a mom.
We learn that the culprit behind the chandelier dropping is, in fact, Dobby.
Woohoo!
Who says, you must not hurt Harry Potter. Dobby then disarms Narcissa. Bellatrix says, how dare you defy your masters? And what Dobby says in return might sound familiar to those who listen to this podcast. You might have just heard it as we went to break. Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf. And Dobby has come to save Harry Potter and his friends. Ron, holding Hermione, catches a wand from Harry so that he can disapparate. Harry frees Griphook from underneath the chandelier, seizes Dobby's hand to disapparate. As they're disapparating, he sees a blur of silver flying towards him as he vanishes. Dobby redirects Harry the disapparation because Harry realizes, I don't know where I'm going. I'm just turning around and disapparating without any, and we know one of the D's is destination.
Yep.
And he does not have a destination.
He's just chilling in the disapparation.
Yeah, he's just in like this weird form, I guess. And Dobby pulls his hand mid-disapparation to help locate the actual destination. But upon arriving, the elf sways as the silver knife is protruding from the elf's chest. Harry catches Dobby, lays him on the grass. Dobby says, Harry Potter, and then dies. And that is how we end an action-packed chapter on an incredibly sad note.
That is such a fast-paced chapter to come to a screeching halt.
I could not get to the next chapter quick enough after I read this for the first time because I refused to believe that this was real.
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments that I think every Harry Potter fan is just overcome with emotion. Because, we talked about Hermione being the MVP of this book. Well, right here, in this chapter, Dobby might have come in from nowhere and stolen that title from her. As much as Hermione has done in this book, and she has done amazing things,
Yeah.
Dobby came in a moment where they had nothing.
Yeah.
They were going to be tortured. They were going to die. Voldy was on his way. There was no way out. And Dobby saved them. And I think, if we remember back to Dobby in Book 2 and where he started this journey, he essentially tried to kill Harry, I think, a couple of times. Not intentionally, but, if one of the bludgers collided with him or something like that...
Yeah, probably wouldn't have ended well.
Wouldn't have been great.
No.
But now we're here, and I think at this point Dobby has captured the love of, everyone in the universe. And not because he's an adorable house elf in the movies, but because he's responsible for so much. Mm-hmm. He's essentially the thing that gives them the room of requirement.
He's had a lot of pivotal moments in these books.
Yeah.
And he starts out antagonistic, but he and Harry actually develop a genuine bond over the course of the books. He helps Harry with the room of requirement. He helps him with the tasks in Goblet of Fire.
Yeah.
I know there's more that he's done. So he helps, doesn't he help tail Malfoy?
Yep.
Too? So, he's shown up for Harry in a lot of different ways.
He
over
aids
the
Creature in getting Mundungus back.
Yeah.
Dobby is very much, arguably, an MVP of this whole series.
Yes.
And, you mentioned the Goblet of Fire thing. I remember being so angry with Harry during that stretch because I'm like, you are procrastinating on a life or death event that you have to participate in. What are you doing?
Yep.
And, yeah, Dobby comes in clutch.
Yep.
I do as much as I love Neville, and as much as I love Matthew Lewis in the movies, as much as I love Neville in the movies, mm-hmm. Neville steals a lot of Dobby stuff because he's the one that helps with the gillyweed.
That's true.
Neville's the one that finds the room of requirement. Neville ends up stealing a lot of Dobby's thunder.
So I've talked about this before, but I read the first 4 books, and then I went through a period where I was friends with a bunch of people where they were critical of Harry Potter. So I missed out on the last 3 books, essentially. Junior high is a rough time. So when they started coming out with the movies, I remember reading the 5th book before the movie. I think I read the 6th book before the movie, but I actually did not read the 7th book before I saw the movies. I saw the movies first.
Wow, okay.
So I remember vividly, I was in college, and a bunch of my friends got together, and we went out to watch it when this came out. So we went out, we were ready for part 1, and I remember the mood change in the theater from the scene that I just described where Dobby is on top of the chandelier unscrewing it, and it's that moment of levity in the middle of the fight scene, to 10 minutes later just bawling. Just everybody's bawling. And I didn't know that was going to happen. I think other people obviously other people in the theater knew it was going to happen because we saw the day it came out or whatever. So right. I'm surrounded by all these Potter fans. And you're sitting there and I'm just everyone's in tears. And I'm like, how is this the end of part 1? It caught me completely off guard. And it was just so such an emotional moment to have. Because I remember Dobby from when I did read the books. I did like Dobby. They did a good job of building up that relationship with him.
I remember this scene in the movie, and I couldn't put the quote in here as much as I wanted to, but it isn't in the book. But it's a great line, and it's one of those added lines in the movie that I just love because it's just so good, and it is in character for Dobby to say it, so I'm not mad at it that they added it. But the line is, right before they disapparate from the room, Bellatrix says, "You stupid elf, you could have killed me." And then it cuts to Dobby with, "Dobby never meant to kill. Dobby only meant to maim or seriously injure."
I forgot about that.
It's a great line.
It is.
That's so in character for Dobby. I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
Well, and that was another moment in the movie where that's again another moment of levity.
Yeah.
And then it's like...
It dashes immediately.
Immediately.
This is also where the movie cuts.
I know, I was literally about to say that. It's the end of part 1. So you go from these funny moments in this really tense scene to just sobbing, and then you have to wait for the next...
Yeah.
For the resolution. It's such a gut-wrenching end to a movie.
We have, in this one chapter, we have 2 massive character deaths. Granted, each character means something different to the Harry Potter fandom, but Wormtail, a member of the Marauders, passes, and Dobby, such a key and important member that helps Harry through so much, both gone. And Harry has suffered a lot now with the death of Sirius and the death of Moody and the death of Hedwig, and now we get the death of Dobby. We can only imagine how Harry is going to process this, but luckily we don't have to wait long. Just the very next chapter. So, unless you have anything else,
that's it for me.
We will wrap it up here for Chapter 23, Malfoy Manor. A lot happened in Malfoy Manor. Let us know what you think of the chapter. Let us know what you think of Wormtail's death. Let us know what you think of Dobby's death. Let us know what your thoughts on each of those characters are. We want to know your thoughts and opinions. Jen and I have shared a lot of opinions on Wormtail and Dobby and the Malfoy family dynamic. We've shared a lot. We want to know what you guys think, so please leave those comments on Blue Sky or Instagram or YouTube or on Spotify if you're listening there as well. We'll also have a poll up on Spotify that you can participate in, and we can't wait to see all of those comments and results. And with that, we will wrap it up here. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HogwartsAPod.